want to welcome everyone to this open cloud conversation. The purpose of today's conversation really is to have a discussion with my friend and colleague Krishnan Subramanian about what open cloud actually means, and to give some clarity to people. In any technology change, there's always a lot of discussion about different trends, about different things, and there's always a degree of marketing. And so I want to provide people with a bit of clarity, so when they're thinking about their open conversation, they can actually make an informed decision. So hopefully Jonathan Bryce from OpenStack will be joining us, but in the meantime, Krish, if you could introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about what you do.
My name is Krishnan Subramanian. I'm a principal analyst in a boutique analyst firm called Rishi.Research. Research. Regarding what I do right now, I'm sitting pretty close to the most proprietary event in the world, Apple's launch event in San Francisco. And I'm an analyst focusing on cloud infrastructure and cloud platforms. And I try to advocate people towards open cloud. But I don't see open cloud as the only solution in the market, but open cloud is a very important a requirement for if you are worried about lock-in and other issues associated with cloud computing.
So we need to start off with the definitional thing. What does open cloud mean to you? What constitutes an open cloud?
Okay. Let me before we dig into the definition, let me sort of give a brief background about me. I come from the open source world, so I'm maybe biased here, but if I sort of learn a few lessons from the open source world, what we realized was open source enables innovation, and that also breaks down. Open source also breaks down monopoly. These are the two key lessons I have taken from the open source world, and I'm trying to apply to open cloud. So for me, with this background, for me, open cloud means open protocols, open formats, and open source.
Okay, because obviously, I don't want to turn this into a negative discussion, but there has been a lot of what people are calling open washing, with people saying that their solution is open, and so some people have said that open source isn't a requirement of open cloud. Others have said simply having an API, simply having an API is enough. Keen to hear your thoughts given the wide landscape that we have.
Okay, so let me split this question into two. First, about open washing, and the second one is about some group. I call them people from Tim O'Reilly school of thought. So let me attack their arguments later. First, open washing, that's an expected one. Like whenever something becomes a hot topic, people are going to jump in. Just like how the people were cloud washing when cloud computing became really hot, you're going to see open cloud washing as you go by. Companies are going to claim that they are open while they are not actually open. So there will be a lot of misrepresentations happening in the industry. That is expected, because whenever something becomes hot topic or important topic of discussion among punditry, companies will jump into that, jump in and start using the keyword. So I think people like us who sort of talk about the industry in the public should make sure that these both cloud washing and open washing doesn't gain any traction. Having made that clear, now let me tackle the Tim O'Reilly school of thought. Actually, it all started a few years back when Tim O'Reilly wrote a blog post in which he argued that as we move to a services world where everything is hosted, the people who have an open source background should not worry about source code, but rather they should be focusing on open architecture and open formats kind of a thing. he said that licensing is not important, architecture is important. That's what that's what he said. So based on that school of thought, like some people, like our friends Sam Johnston, Sam Ramji, and a few other people, they came together with an interesting goal of defining open cloud so that people don't get logged into any particular vendor. That's a very noble first step. Like I fully get what they are trying to do. They are trying to make sure that end users are not logged into any single service providers, and also they want to bring in as many service providers as they can. So, but their definition of open cloud stops with open protocols and open formats, which is good enough, but I don't think it will go all the way to make sure that it remains competitive. That's why I'm pushing open source as an additional requirement for open cloud. So let's take a situation. If we just define open cloud with just open protocols and open format, what is going to happen is it is going to help end customers not get logged into any particular provider, but we will end up in the free market has a natural vulnerability, which is pushing the market towards monopoly. So if we just go with open protocols and open formats, what's going to happen is there will be consolidation, and we will end up with a handful of cloud providers. So we will have Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and some other large players out there in the market. Once they get enough market share, they will sort of stop innovating on the services. And it's similar to what we are having in the wireless industry here in US. There are a handful of wireless service providers. They don't innovate. They don't let others innovate. They put hurdles on the way for people. So the same thing will happen on the cloud service provider side, which will be disastrous. By having open source into the open cloud definition, you lower the barrier for more players to come in, and you enable a federated ecosystem that sort of keeps the competition going in the market.
So there's very much, it seems from your perspective, there's two sides of it. And the first side of it is that what Sam Johnston and Sam Ramji, the Open Cloud Initiative, is doing is sufficient protection for consumers of cloud, so that they can move their cloud, so that they have open transportability with their cloud. The second part of it is from your perspective as lowering the barriers to innovation, making sure we have a lot of different players in the marketplace, and for you that's where the open source part comes in. So really there's almost two separate discussions: protecting consumer side to it, but also what is best for innovation and for the industry.
I wouldn't really say that, because it's not two different definitions. One is like protecting the consumer side in terms of just protecting their data from being logged into service providers. But the thing is, imagine like as we move to a services-based world where you don't have applications running on your servers or on your desktops, taking your data out is just one small piece of the problem. If you don't have service that is suitable for you, there is no you can't do anything with the data because you don't have the application running on your server, or you don't have the application running on your local machine. The data becomes meaningless. So instead of taking a short-term view, from today's perspective, the key point is we have to make sure that all cloud service providers support open formats, open protocols, and open formats. I agree with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's a short-term view. Let's say if the market sort of emerges towards goes towards consolidation, and comes up with a handful of cloud providers, that's going to hurt the same customers badly. What if I could take the data out of AWS, but if I have to go through the same kind of crap with Google? What am I achieving? I'm not achieving anything. I'll have the data which is practically useless. So if you really want to empower the end customers, you need to make sure that there is competition in the marketplace, and the only way to have competition in the marketplace is by having open source.
Sure. Okay. Now I believe we're just about Jonathan Bryce from OpenStack is just about ready to join us. I've just added him to the Hangout, and because I'm interested to hear his perspective. Maybe quickly before he joins, Krish, if you could go over the different open cloud initiatives we currently have in the marketplace.
Okay, there are many, but the chief among them are like OpenStack, CloudStack, and Eucalyptus. Initially, they all started with different purposes. Eucalyptus was more open core, CloudStack was open core, and OpenStack was the only open source solution out there in the market. But now Citrix, after they bought Cloud.com, they have changed the licensing terms of CloudStack, and CloudStack is now open source. Seeing these two emerging, taking the open source path, Eucalyptus also jumped into that open source bandwagon. And Citrix did something really, really interesting. They pushed CloudStack to the Apache Foundation, which is more open foundation than OpenStack Foundation, which many people think that it's dominated by corporates. I don't think I will worry about that criticism about corporates dominating OpenStack Foundation. It's more of like it's more of capitalism in action, if you want to call it. Like many different companies with their own interest to protect are coming together to working towards a project. I don't think it is going to be one particular idea or one particular philosophy is going to dominate. They are very desperation within quotes to make profits will make sure that they don't let the competing company take the project in one direction. It is a very good free market ecosystem inside the foundation, and the more people who come, that's why I was supportive of VMware coming in. I even commented that Microsoft should be part of this foundation, because the more companies come into the foundation, the better it is for the end customers, because there will be a invisible hand that will stop somebody from screwing up the project.
See, it's interesting because you know, I live in New Zealand, so my perspective is slightly different, and sometimes the commercial realities of life in the US are a little different. But you've got, in particular with CloudStack and OpenStack, two open source initiatives that are also fighting a commercial battle, and just that tension between open source, which is good and about the community and for the betterment of all, and then the commercial reality of trying to build momentum and build substance.
I wouldn't say it's a difference between New Zealand and US. In fact, even within US, there is problem among many people to understand open source. It's not about open source being good. It is more about open source being the enabler of innovation and competitive marketplace. So, but the thing is, like, before open source came into picture, the entry to barrier to any technology was very high, especially software. So open source was disrupting the software market. What was happening was, like, before open source came into picture, there were a handful of proprietary software technologies available for any specific need, and they sort of like consolidated and they dominated the market. They made big money. What open source is doing is, by enabling more players to jump into the market, it's sort of like, if you can use the US political quotes, it's redistributing the wealth to many people. It's not about single player dominating the market and getting all the money. It's about more players participating in the market and having a chance to make money. That's so. Well, it's a different paradigm. It will take some time before people get comfortable with this idea, but this is where the future is. So I think people will eventually get comfortable with this idea.
Now, we've got a few people in the YouTube channel that are keen to comment. So created a hashtag which is OpenCloudConv. So OpenCloudConv. So if there's any questions or comments, I know Dave Nielsen out there from CloudCamp fame is keen to jump in and make some comments. So feel free to. But we've also got now Jonathan Bryce from Rackspace / OpenStack in on the conversation. And Jonathan, I'm keen to get your take, because clearly OpenStack is probably the largest or the highest momentum open cloud initiative. So I'm keen to get your colour in terms of why open cloud is important and why you think the OpenStack approach in particular is best.
Sure. Well, I think that one of the things that's really interesting just about open cloud in general is to see, and you know, Krish, I came in the middle of when you were talking. You may have been making some of these points as well, but I think that it's one of the first major technology shifts that has had really open source as a driver from the very beginning of it. And I think that's an interesting thing to look at, compared to operating systems and relational databases and other kind of major technology components that have come along. There's often been a long period where it's been proprietary, vendor-driven, and locked up, and before there's really a comparable set of open source options that are out there. And with cloud, we see that people are actually committing resources, developers, time, effort, money, all of those things to make credible open source alternatives. From a very early point in this cloud technology shift. I think that probably we can thank Linux and MySQL and the successful open source projects that have come around in the last 15 years that have really pushed their way fully into the enterprise to thank for some of that. But I think that it's just the nature of cloud as kind of a fundamental piece of infrastructure management, something that is developing into this platform that runs in a company's data centers as a service with other people's data centers. It all lends itself to people wanting the benefits of open systems where they can have some choice and they can have access to really inspect the technology, see how it works, have different options from different vendors. I think all of that kind of plays together really in a cloud world in a way that it necessarily hasn't before.
And so the thing is, Jonathan, I don't want to have this as a vendor discussion, but it's hard not to, given that it is so nascent and is revolving around vendors. But one side of the house would say, hang on, Amazon is the largest public cloud provider. Eucalyptus is now built to Amazon APIs. If you want public cloud, if you want private cloud, there's your choice. What more does anyone need? And the fact that Amazon has got to scale indicates that they have the most compelling proposition. Given that, what is the next step to make it such a requirement for open source to be a part?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't catch all of that. Google logged me out for some reason.
So basically, the synopsis was some people would say that Amazon gives choice because now that Eucalyptus is using their APIs, it allows people to move from public to private. Why do we need any more than that?
Well, I think if you talk to a lot of enterprises out there, they have a whole range of answers to that question. I think Amazon has done a lot of good in pushing the technology envelope and really innovating and driving very cool new concepts and architectures and all of that into the way that applications are built and run. But at the same time, you can go talk to enterprises, and there are things that they think Amazon is great for, and there are things that they just won't put on Amazon. There are things that they have internal requirements for, and I think that comes into play with alternatives. And within OpenStack, we have the networking system that is it's called Quantum, and a lot of the initial requirements for Quantum were driven by the requests that we were hearing from enterprises who wanted to build clouds, but they needed richer network topologies. They needed to be able to do things that weren't right out of the box, the kinds of features that Amazon had or that were available in the Amazon API. So I think that Amazon, they are obviously the giant in the cloud market, and they've done a great job in building their product set out. But it's so early in this whole technology shift that I don't think that they have the corner on all of the features or all of the use cases that everyone out there is going to want to apply cloud to.
Then can I take a crack at it? I can sort of extend a little bit on what Jonathan has said.
Sure.
So, I would say that the world's needs are diverse to be sort of handled by a standardized set of services from one particular or handful of providers. I think now the market is more global. There are so many things come into play from performance needs to reliability needs to even some local customizations to regulatory needs. So these needs cannot be satisfied by a standardized set of services saying that, hey, I have this extra large, small, blah, 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 blah kind of instances. I have this, that. So you have to adjust your needs based on what I offer to you. So that is not going to work. The end customers are more enlightened these days. They want this vendors to provide services to match their needs than adjusting their needs to match what vendors offer. So if you have to cater to this market, you have to have more than just Amazon's and Google's offering cloud services to people. You need to have more players coming in. So I think the needs are very diverse to sort of assume that a few people can take care of it.
Do you think, though, Krish, that I mean, I agree with you. Everyone's needs are diverse, but in having this plethora of different options, we're confusing a marketplace. And is it not fair to say that this early on?
I don't think. I fully agree that when there is more choice, there will be confusion. But that also opens up opportunities for innovations. You will have higher order services which will come in and fill that pain point and say that, hey, you can use my service and figure out, find the exact service you need from the wide variety of choices that is available in the market. It sort of accelerates innovation, and it's overall it's very good for the market in general. So it might sound utopian, but looking at how open source disrupted the enterprise software side, even though it came very, very late into the game, I am pretty confident that open cloud, which includes open source in the definition, will disrupt the market in the beginning stages itself and offer a completely different kind of a market than what we are used to in the past. And remember, the consumers are also more diverse than in the past. In the past, probably the biggest market was US, and then you had some small segments in Europe and other places. Now you have empowered customers, end users coming from continents like Africa, several parts of Asia. So the market is huge. The needs are diverse, and I think the market, the very nature of the marketplace is going to change. And open cloud with open source in the definition is going to drive that change.
So the interesting thing for me is that over the past, I guess, 5 or 6 years, we've seen early initiatives around creating a specification for a cloud standard, and I've always taken the perspective that it's way too early for stringent specifications. Now, regardless of whether it's too early for specifications, it seems to me that, and just last week there was another specification came out, or a proposed specification around the platform as a service area. But it seems to me that specifications without adoption are just tumbleweeds blowing around around the road. And the reality is that it needs to be driven by adoption, it needs to be driven by a vibrant ecosystem. And I just wonder if all the attention that's being spent on creating specifications without adoption is actually misplaced. What's your perspective on that, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think that excuse me. One of the things you said was that a specification without adoption is tumbleweeds blowing in the wind. I think that that it's also true that this early on, a specification without an implementation is a tumbleweed, and I think that that's one of the things that has hindered some of the other specifications out there. Is I do think that they came in very early. There wasn't really any implementation of them. There wasn't a real commitment from anyone to implement them from a vendor or a service provider perspective, and so it results in a situation where how can I go out and build my application against that specification? Are there tools that are going to work with it? I think that's kind of the phase that we've been in. One of the reasons why when we were getting OpenStack started, we didn't we talked about it as kind of an open standard, but not a standard specification. But we wanted something that people could come in and iterate on an API and an implementation simultaneously, that could be run in public clouds, private clouds, and And the architecture, the way that it's set up, allows different API, specifically different API modules to be kind of attached on top of it. That's how we have AWS compatibility support and other things like that. So that's kind of the approach that we took to it, because I think you got to have an implementation before you can have adoption, and that's really what makes a specification matter. That's why people care about the Amazon APIs, is because they have a great implementation and they have a lot of adoption.
Yeah, I mean, Krish, what's your perspective? Because you've got, no doubt, thousands of press releases about new specifications over the years.
Yeah. So my general opinion about standards is you don't try to standardize till there is a pain point. And I believe in standardization, but that should happen only after there is a pain point and there is a real need for standardization, because premature standardization could kill innovation. So that is my position on that. But I do support standards, and the standards should be based on adoption to a certain extent. But it should also be based on open. It should be an open standard. My problem with Amazon right now is they are not an open standard. They are more proprietary, and they don't even talk publicly about the kind of license they are going to offer on top of their APIs. They said okay to Eucalyptus when the Eucalyptus wanted a certification from Amazon, but they didn't do the same for CloudStack. The simple reason is Eucalyptus is focusing in a different market segment, that's enterprise, whereas CloudStack is focused on service provider market, which is a competitor to them. So if Amazon is going to behave this way, I don't think we should be standardizing on Amazon API, even though it has a lot of early adopter market. We should not be standardizing on them unless Amazon release licenses their API under Creative Commons or one of the licenses. Probably, and we are still early in the market. We should wait for some more innovation to happen. There is no pain point yet.
So your perspective is very strongly that until such time, or unless Amazon really opens up and gives some clarity around their licensing for their API, that we should, yes, potentially build to or integrate with Amazon, but it should in no way be regarded as the standard. Is that right?
Yeah. We should not standardize. See, the thing is, right now, like interoperability with Amazon can be taken care of without standards. You have higher level services like cloud management players taking care of interoperability, portability, and all those things. So right now, there is no pain point for standards as such. And we should wait and make sure that Amazon is doing the things right before we standardize on Amazon. That is my only point. I'm not saying we should not standardize on Amazon. We should standardize only if Amazon makes the right moves. Otherwise, there are plenty of other options where we can look for in terms of standardization. Let's say 5 years from now, OpenStack or CloudStack might have, or OpenStack might have definitely might have more adoption, so we could standardize around OpenStack. So there are many options. So I think right now it's too early to standardize, and even the discussion about standardizing around Amazon API is naive and bad.
So one tension point that seems to exist is that from a technical development perspective, when you have lots of people deciding on the direction of a product, then there's tension between fragmentation and innovation. And in terms of the governance, in terms of an open source or an open project, the worst thing about democratic open situation is that it's a democratic open situation, and that everything takes longer, and there's fragmentation, and there's arguments. So clearly we've seen some tension around the different open cloud initiatives over time around those 2 points. From your perspective as an outsider, Krish, where do you see that tension lying, and how is it best to resolve those tensions?
See, I might be a little biased here, though I'm an outsider. I might be a little biased here because of my background with regards to anything open and democratic. So, having said that, I think any democratic process is a long-term process. These democratic systems are much more stable in long term, though it might be a little painful in short term. So, but at the same time, the needs of enterprises maybe short-term needs. So there will definitely be a tension going around. But the way I see it is, as long as there is some innovation that's happening around or on top of it, that sort of eases the pain points and keeps the boat going, we should always take the slow-moving approach, which is better in the long term. So, do I answer that question?
Yeah. I guess, Jonathan, clearly, it's no secret that there have been some tensions around, in particular, around OpenStack, around governance, around, I guess, transparency. Keen now that you've come through that process and there is a board of directors in place. Keen to hear your reflections on, I guess, what went right, what went wrong, and what other open initiatives can learn, and why that's important for Open Cloud in particular.
Yeah, well, just on one point related to the fragmentation topic there, I think that within OpenStack we've always tried to optimize for contribution and for inclusion and for bringing people in, and getting code and other contributions back into the community and the software overall. And at times there have definitely been points where people have taken a snapshot in time, taken whatever it is, and kind of based a product around that. That's what people do with open source software. But I think that that as our development processes and our development community have matured, we've seen some really interesting things come to fruition on that side. We have OpenStack is supported by all of the major Linux distributions now, and what's interesting is those Linux distributions, most of them have representatives on a release management team within OpenStack that's responsible for kind of the bug patching and the stable fixes and the stable releases of OpenStack. And so while we are present in all of these various Linux distributions, what's interesting is you can look at at what they are all offering of OpenStack, and it's the same OpenStack bits. There are pieces that they've built on top to make to add extra management functionality or monitoring functionality or things like that, but the actual OpenStack bits are the same, and I think they're just natural forces that are going to continue to push people into that direction. We've seen some different organizations who have split off at a certain point in time, and they've come back and they've said, "Wow, we kind of took this as our snapshot of our product, and we started building on other things, and the community has gotten ahead of us, and now we've got to work to get back into it." And I think that people are starting to learn that with something like an open source project like this, really for the company even the best way is to try to work in the main portion, the main branch of the software, so that you can benefit from that broad community involvement. And there's some natural polls that we're starting to see that are coming into fruition. Like Krish said, these communities are long term. They take a long time to form up and shape in these ways. And on the other side, on the other question, yeah, I mean, I think it's great that we've got a board of directors that is in place now, and the kind of the foundation is getting very close to really being completely launched and ready to lead OpenStack forward off into the future. I think that there are a lot of things that we've learned along the way. I think that even just one of the things that's interesting to think about is some of the dust ups and the conversations that we've had about transparency or governance. Part of why they're even happening, why they're even possible, is because in general, we've been a very open community, and this has not been something where there have been a bunch of secret meetings inside of a corporate office and then things are handed down. We have a lot of open discussions. You can go through our various mailing lists and you can see some very lively debates and disagreements, and you can go through Twitter history and you can see all of this. And I actually think that a lot of that points to this way that we actually have really tried to push the envelope in being open and transparent. And sometimes people have different expectations around timing or around specific things that are public or non-public, or how decisions should have been made and what the actual decision was. But I think if you look back, you'll see that I think what's really healthy is a lot of that has actually come out, and sometimes that can be it can seem like there's a lot more controversy than I think there really is. We've had a lot of those discussions in the open, but at the same time, we're about to have our 6th software release. We had 37 new developers who contributed to OpenStack for the first time in the last 30 days. All of the things that get back to the heart of what we're trying to do keep moving forward.
Yeah. Can you sort of add to that regarding the pain points and things like that? Like one thing is, though I'm very much biased towards open source and open cloud and all those things, what ultimately matters is does it solve the customer's problem? So whether it is open source or proprietary or anything, it has to ultimately solve the customer's problem. I see open source as I don't see open source as the only way to solve customers' problem. There could be proprietary software which could do a much better job than many of the open cloud platforms out there. But the thing is, I see open source as the only way to keep the competition going in the market and keep all the vendors, open source, proprietary, everybody honest and focused only on solving the end customer's problem. So I want to make it clear, I'm not saying that open source is the only solution to all the market needs. I'm just saying that open source will make sure that customers' needs are met by vendors, both proprietary and open.
Sure. Now, one thing, Dave Nielsen, CloudCamp founder, is watching this video, and he asked a very relevant question, and that is, does this notion of open cloud, does it mean different things at different layers of the stack, and in particular, infrastructure as a service versus platform as a service? Is open source so important at different layers? Is it simply about portability, at higher layers? Chris, what's your thoughts around different layers of the stack and what open cloud means?
As far as the definition of open source, which I'm advocating, open cloud, which I'm advocating, with open source being part of it, it's sort of like it means the same in infrastructure layer and PaaS layer. So definitely, it's about enabling competition, it's about giving choices, it's about fostering innovation and all those things. But on the software as a service layer, it's a different ball game. If it is there, what is more important is making sure that the protocols are open, the data is you can download your data in a more in an open format and stuff like that. But the open source, the difference between open source in the software layer and open source in the platform and infrastructure layer is, in the software layer, if the source code is available, even if the SaaS vendor goes out of business, I could, at least technically, if I have enough resources, I could take the source code, put it on top of one of the cloud platforms that are available in the market, and ensure business continuity. So it's not that much about fostering competition in the software layer, but it is more in the case of platform and infrastructure layer. So I mean, more about ensuring business continuity if there is no other option. If there are other options, I don't think anybody will care about source code there.
So, I mean, Jonathan, obviously OpenStack and other open cloud initiatives are focused very much on the infrastructure layer, but there's already talks and there are already moves to sort of play to an extent at the platform layer. What do you see, in particular, the differences are when talking about open cloud at a higher stack layer?
Yeah. Well, I think that it kind of gets back to the main differences as you move up and down the layers of the cloud are really around customization and control and how much ability the deployer the customer has when you're talking about an infrastructure layer. A user of an infrastructure cloud has a lot of capacity to customize what that looks like, and really kind of build out an architecture and an environment. When you move up to the software layer, they really don't have any any control over that. They're just putting data in. So I think there are obviously differences in terms of what should be present. The one thing that I think is consistent through any layer, whether you're at infrastructure or platform or software, is the great default lock-in mechanism, which is data. If you when you store a lot of data using any type of cloud technology at any layer, a lot of times that's the thing that's the most likely to keep you somewhere. If you have terabytes, petabytes of data in a public cloud, it becomes very difficult to easily transition off of that to something else, even if you have access to the same software. And the same is true with software services. So I think that's really the key thing across all of the layers that's consistent is the data, whether it's data in servers, data in databases, data in a software application, is the key thing for that comes back to what customers need to have open in some way.
Yes, can I take on that and build upon build upon it and make another point which I want to make. So the thing is, I also want to make it clear that open source itself doesn't mean that you're not logged into something. It has to be open source plus open protocols plus open format. So that is a key thing. And the second thing is, let's say even within, Jonathan, feel free to take a shot at me if you disagree with me. Even within OpenStack community, it doesn't mean that everything is interoperable and everything workloads can be seamlessly ported and things like that. So there are hurdles there, there are issues there. You need to get those things sorted out before we can make any bold claims about open formats, open interfaces, and open source means seamless interoperability and portability. So there are many issues which one should take care, but these are the basic requirements before we can even start dreaming about that having that seamless portability among different clouds.
Yeah, I mean, the comment about OpenStack's a fantastic thing. What flavor would you like? Is arguably a true one. I guess the tension there is that you want to let 1,000 flowers bloom, and you want to let great things happen. And to a certain extent, you're going to get some fragmentation and a little bit of a few different things going on in the ecosystem when you encourage that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's there's OpenStack is really a general purpose piece of software. It's meant to be the control system for compute, storage, and networking at a data center level, and so there's that gives people the ability to build clouds with OpenStack that are very similar and that do have the ability to interoperate, move images between them, that kind of thing. It also gives people the ability to build different kinds of clouds. I don't think that it's something that OpenStack should try to say that there is only one form of OpenStack. I think there needs to be a basic level of a target for OpenStack that tools vendors and customers can aim at. And if you look at the some of the trademark policies that we have in place, there are different things that there are requirements around the software that needs to be included, versioning, these kinds of things in order to call yourself and your software, an OpenStack distribution or an OpenStack cloud or powered by OpenStack. But at the same time, if you just want the software and you want to go off and build your own thing and you want to use the OpenStack bits and then go do something different, then I think that's fine to do.
Yeah.
Sure. So we've got a few minutes left. What I'm keen to do, it's always kind of fun, to do a little bit of crystal ball gazing. And a couple of years ago, there was no real talk about open cloud. There was talk about lock-in, but there were no real answers to that concern. Today, we have a situation where there's a number of different open cloud initiatives. There are a number of different open cloud specifications or proposals for specifications. We have this, amazing degree of chaos, good chaos, where there's a lot of stuff happening. Keen to go out another 2 years and see what people think, where we will be in terms of open cloud. We'll start with you, Jonathan.
Wow, that's a that's a pretty open-ended one. I think that besides just open cloud itself is it's Gartner has their hype cycle thing that they do, obviously, and it's interesting to look at that and see how they have different phases of parts of the cloud and different phases of the hype cycle. And I know you guys have been talking about cloud, involved in cloud for many years, and I think when I remember when S3 came out in March of 2006, and right around the time that we were launching the first products that became the Rackspace Cloud, and so I mean that's 6 years ago, and it seems like a long time, but if you look at the real adoption of it, it's been a lot of adoption on the public side. Started to see that in the private side. Hybrid is really just starting. It's still almost a dream in most cases. Platforms there are 1,000 different ways you can do platform. I think that really we're still at the very beginning of this, and if you look at something like operating systems and the way that operating systems developed over a couple of decades, it was similar in some ways, and I think that what we'll see start to happen is from the bottom up, infrastructure through platform, through software, we'll start to see some standard ways that these things get built and deployed in public clouds and private clouds. That'll enable some innovation and then also some standardization at the next level up on platforms, which I think is actually where there's even more value in the cloud to be added, when developers can write code and not have to worry about all of the crazy plumbing underneath. But I think that's still a few years out. And then you get past that point, and we're in the point where where desktop apps today, you don't really think about you don't really have to think about access to a disk or access to memory or any of those kinds of things if you want to write an application for OS 10 or for Windows or anything like that. I think that's what cloud is really going to enable over the long term, is that same kind of freedom and innovation for developers, but with access to the resources of a data center or multiple data centers versus the resources of a computer.
Sure. And Chris, your chance to look at the crystal ball.
Okay, so actually your question should be what will we be thinking about open cloud 10 years from now? It should not be what we will be thinking about open cloud 10 years from now. It should be what missions will be thinking about openness 10 years from now. So I think it's going to be completely different from what we can even imagine today. It's going to be all services. It's going to be seamless services, running an ocean of services, interacting with each other with an automation and scale that we can't imagine today. It will be a totally different ballgame. Maybe we'll be talking about how openness or open source within quotes helps innovate us build machines or missions in our. The openness will move from the software layer to a hardware layer and beyond. So I think I'm much more optimistic about where things will be, because I expect the technological evolution to be more exponential in the coming years, and there'll be an ocean of services where we'll be focusing about openness at a totally different layer, probably some hardware or somewhere else. Like our ideas are going to change completely, technologically, economically, socio-politically, in all ways. So we'll be fighting a different open fight 10 years from now than what we are doing today.
The one thing that's probably sure is that you and I will still be talking about it, Chris.
Yes, we will definitely we'll be using some medium to fight about what is openness, what is that. Our life will go on, but at a different scale.
And Jonathan will be doing it all the time. But hey, I want to thank you guys. It's been really interesting, and I think we have really managed to get some clarity around this discussion about what is an open cloud and why it's important. want to keep the conversation going. Obviously, there's a bunch of people talking on Twitter about it, and I'll do a blog post and welcome you guys to as well. Keep up the conversation. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Yeah,
thank you.
It was fun talking to you, and now I'll go and find out what Apple has announced.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, man. Bye.